He co-founded Writely, an online word processor that was acquired by Google and then became the foundation for Google Docs. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I still have the very first one, actually, believe it or not.
Your very first doc, Google Doc?
Yeah, the very first Google Doc is in my personal GDocs account. I mean, it's like the first one in the ship of Theseus sense, basically, right? Like the back end has been migrated twice, the front end has been rewritten twice. Like,
so
the
what's
NFT of it would be more original than the original thing, but it's still there.
So what's in the doc?
Not much. Like, I think we were testing images, so it's got a picture of Edna from The Incredibles is what's in there right now.
Perfect.
That's so cool. Yeah, of course. Like, I have a Google Doc open on my screen right now with the notes for the show. It's just like such an integral portion of what I have done for the last 15 years with my startups. And yeah, it's such a crazy good product. Very impressive.
What is the Google Docs breakthrough? Is it collaboration? Is it sharing? If you could sum it up in a sentence, what do you think it is?
It's users are lazy, basically. I mean, like more or less, like, you probably don't remember, like back in the day, like the only way you could share a document back then was either a file share or an email, right? And like both of those were kind of crappy. Like if you had like a shared file server, people would like open a document and like go home for the weekend and it would be locked open and you couldn't do anything with it. Or, like only one person at a time could use it. So it's like really inconvenient. And so like, that was mostly the breakthrough, is like, just make it easier. Like the history of it was just, a lot of, just playing with stuff basically is kind of the theme of today too, just playing around with new technology. Like JavaScript had shown up, we knew word processors, so we were playing around with word process. It's just a kind of natural thing to do something with a word processor. Gmail was like the year before, so like we kind of had web apps on the brain. We just sort of started to put it all together, and then like we immediately realized that like collaboration was a problem. Like, if multiple people are in the document, you can't do like last in, like that. It just doesn't work. Like you keep stepping on each other. So like getting it up and running was pretty easy, but then, getting it to be right was just months of pain because the browsers were not ready to deal with it. JavaScript was really crappy at the time. I mean, like, it's kind of funny when people argue about JavaScript frameworks. I'm like, jQuery didn't even exist when I was doing this. Like I wrote it raw, like, poking at the browser to figure out like what would happen, like that kind of stuff, like 20 years ago.
Was Java the key technology to really unlock the kind of web app version of
JavaScript? Yeah, JavaScript. Like the funny thing, like little known fact, is like the server was C# because we were playing around with C# at the time and we thought it was kind of an interesting language.
What year was this, by the way?
2005 was when we started doing it. It's pretty old, like 20 years ago. But the interesting thing, which is maybe relevant to the AI age, is that like it was messy, and it from this perspective, GDocs looks like a really brilliant, obvious idea, right? But like because everybody uses it, it's billions of people. Like it seems it's hard to argue with it. It's like it worked really well. But from like the perspective of 2005, like people thought we were nuts, and like I had like 500,000 users, and I was still getting people telling me like it wasn't going to work. Like, this is a bad idea. Like, JavaScript's a crappy language. What is this, like, untyped, crappy interpreted language shit? That's like vibe coding. Like, it was like that exact attitude of like, this is never going to work. That's not real code. That's not a real app. And then users were confused, right? Like, what is this thing? It's a web page, but it's not a web page. You're editing it, but you're not editing the web page. You're editing a document, but it's actually an application, but it's also the document. And it's not really there, but it's somewhere in the cloud. Like, just like a whole bunch of concepts all at once for people to get their heads around, which are obvious to us now, but were very much not obvious then. It's like, it actually was a really good lesson for me to go through that, because we like simultaneously got people who are huge champions, like Nate Torkington over at O'Reilly was like huge champion really early in the day. But like a lot of people who were like really skeptical. And so like that really like informed how I think of disruptive moments and new technologies and how you have your mindset correct and stuff like that. I actually wrote
it's so hard to imagine anyone being skeptical of a Google Doc in this day and age. It's something that's so ubiquitous and we completely take for granted and yet use every single day.
It is. But that's the key insight though. Like in the moment you will be skeptical. And so that's actually the mindset you have to like break through. Because
what are we seeing today that you think we'll look back on and be like, well, how were we skeptical about this thing 20 years from now?
Well, I think the whole, like, through the last 3 years of generative AI, like, I've been talking about this constantly. I wrote a book about this called No Prize for Pessimism, because, like, there's no prize for being pessimistic and correct. Like, who cares, right? You get a gold star if you're pessimistic and right about something. But like, I've been seeing this for a long time, and people are like, well, like, this AI thing, like, it doesn't work right. It hallucinates. It's too expensive. It's too slow. It's not that smart. Look, I found a mistake that it made. I call this like the why not mentality. Like, if you decided you want something to fail, you ask all these why not questions. And the right thing to ask is the what if questions. Like, what if it does work? And like, what if you lean into it and it does work? And like, from where I sit, like, you look back, even over like the last 6 months, like, the transformation and capabilities in this technology is remarkable. So like, I think that's the easy one right now. Like, it's kind of, I always view kind of everything through this historical lens, but like, definitely all the criticism about generative LLMs, all the AI from like the last 3 years, all of that stuff, like, I view it through this historical lens of like, are you is that a real criticism, or is that like you started with the emotion of not wanting it to succeed and you're making up the why not story to make yourself feel better?
Yeah. And Sam, like, we're seeing, as you said, like a complete revolution in coding specifically right now. That is the first industry that has been flipped on its head, but we aren't seeing that in other industries yet. And I am an optimist, but I want to hear, like, why do you think we haven't seen it? Is it just a function that the generative AI wave has been going only for 3 years, or like, are there improvements to the models that are necessary, the scaffolding? What do you think?
GDocs was like 2005, right? So when did the web start? 93. Like, the browser was 93. That's a really long time, right? So just looking through historically, first of all, right? Like, it hasn't been that long for LLMs. Right? 3 years, even though this has been a very busy, very tiring, very fast 3 years, it's still only 3 years. We're still working out a bunch of best practices, tooling, infrastructure, stuff like that. I think with code, I wrote this last week, about coding. Like, code is a little bit easier for the tools to get to, right? It's very language based. The plumbing is really great. Like, GitHub is very easy to access. APIs are very easy to access. File systems are very natural for the models. Programming languages naturally tokenize really well. So like, code is really easy. Code is going first, I think, for a bunch of those reasons. But you can kind of see the same patterns happening. The tools are getting better. We're starting to understand best practices. Different domains are getting more plumbed in, as you see different things start to happen. I had this really interesting thing. We've been building this agentic thing called Amplifier, which folks can play with. It's up on GitHub under Microsoft's user, Microsoft/Amplifier, which is just an agentic tool like Claude Code, but an open one. And one of the people, like, my team is full of technical and non-technical people. Some of the non-technical people will just do amazing things with it. Like, one of my PMs was on an airplane. He decided he wanted to do a study on how to, like, get statistically significant subagent persona behavior. I'm not sure what he was playing with. But I conceived the study, built some code, had Amplifier, like, fire up Mechanical Turk, like, go ask a survey of 50 people, get the data, run the data through his thing, write some further code, produce the bunch of graphs and stuff, and then generate the document, the actual research paper, like, on a flight with crappy Wi-Fi. And so, like, he got in like 4 hours. Like, so he got that to work because, like, the plumbing worked really well. So I think, like, we're gonna see. I do decks all the time now. Like, I just generate HTML pages. I did one that was like in an Apple keynote style yesterday as a joke for my team of like how cool Amplifier is. It's like 38 slides of like black backgrounds and sexy text and fading in and out and stuff like that. So we're starting to see the plumbing happen, and like, it's starting to emerge.
It truly is incredible. I was talking to a CEO of an early stage startup earlier in the week, and he was telling me he was on a call with a design partner, essentially a customer, and the customer wanted a feature, and he hopped in Claude Code and started building the feature in real time and getting feedback from the customer as he was building the thing. I mean, that just doesn't happen a year ago.
But I just think it's really funny to, like, watch this stuff. Watch people be skeptical and critical of AI. It's like fake, it's not working, it's a bubble, whatever. I'm like, I can see these like elite developer communities producing just crazy amounts of output. Like, we produce crazy amounts of output. My lead engineer, not really working very hard on break, just like running in the background, kind of occasionally checking in on his phone, generated 1,200 CLs that are part of the project now. So like, it's just, I think that people don't really quite understand like how effective these tools are getting. And I think the coding community sees it, and it's just barely starting to leak out into other information workers, but I think it'll start to happen.